Hello everyone! So today I would like to talk a bit about some of the shadow aspects of rescuing animals. And I know if we look at our world, it doesn't really seem like there's an overabundance of empathy and compassion towards animals. But what I really want to look at today is the dynamic, the toxic dynamic of the victim versus the savior or rescuer that is often being played out between humans and animals. And what that dynamic is showing pretty clearly is that often our desire to help someone is basically coming from our own feeling of lack and unworthiness. The problem with that is that instead of actually creating love and freedom and compassion, we're basically only creating a coping mechanism. And a coping mechanism is always messing up with our ability to actually see the truth and to objectively view the world and honestly connect with another. As you probably see, that topic is really dear to my heart, and the reason for that is that it is a part of my life since many years. And by that I mean I'm playing that dynamic on a regular basis, and I'm just really starting to understand what is happening inside me and how I'm functioning in that areas. So I thought I would take me as an example in order to explain you what exactly I mean with this whole topic. So to look at myself, I'm gonna start like that. Somehow during my childhood, I developed a mindset of intense lack. And some of the things I was lacking the most were basics, like the feeling of being loved, the feeling of being free, the feeling of being seen and heard. And the reasons for that are complex, but just to give you some example, I felt really forced into a school system that was just not working for me. So it was really painful for me to be forced into this system, which basically made me feel like I'm not enough, not acceptable, and not being seen and not being heard, and as if there would be no space for who I really am, and if the person I actually am is not welcome in this world. That of course are really intense and difficult feelings, especially for a child to deal with. And I'm really happy that I found several coping mechanisms in order to deal with that. And one of these coping mechanisms is that I found someone who is experiencing the same emotions as I did, just even more intense. And in my case, that were animals, especially animals on industrial farms. And what that did to me was that I suddenly got into the position of being the stronger one. And being the stronger one always makes you aware of what you actually have. And yeah, actually that's a beautiful thing, to get aware of what you have, because of course there was love in my life, there was freedom in my life, and I was being seen and heard in many ways. Even though it was lacking in some really important areas, I still had it. And then there were animals who had it so much less. And because I saw it, I basically felt compassion toward them, but I also just really enjoyed being in this position of being the strong one. And with my attempt to then help them, what I did was to try to give what I was already lacking. Of course, that is only really limited possible. But what it did to me was that it kind of forced me to look inside and find what I was looking for in order to give it away. But first I had to find it. So from the feeling of total lack and emptiness, I got to the awareness of abundance and freedom and love existing inside of me. Of course, that felt much better. The problem with that is that of course you can't give endlessly much from something you haven't really figured out how to create for yourself. You haven't really figured it out what it actually is. You haven't fully figured out how to create it, and you haven't really figured out how to find it in your surroundings. That's not a good setup for a stable system of giving. And where that basically is leading to is an emotional and physical burnout, which is a really common thing between like animal rights activists in general, and I mean probably it's a really common thing in humanity, but I see it especially often in social, like people who are attempting to fill the void within themselves with giving to others. But there are even a few more problematic aspects to that. Another one, of course, is that generally if you're burned out and you have been overgiving, you can't create a system that is well working in order to take care of others. This is a general problem in animal rights systems, whatever, like it often ends up being a bunch of people already tired of being alive, totally exhausted, trying to create a stable system, and it's not gonna work. And also the intense urge to help and rescue all the time leads often to way too many animals to actually take care of, because it honestly already is a big challenge to take care of one animal in this human-dominated society. It is extremely difficult, and yes, just like a farmer can be completely blind to the absolute basic needs of animals that are so obvious to other people, we as sanctuary owners can also become blind to many needs of the residents of our sanctuaries, just because there is no space for them to be expressed, and we assume that that doesn't mean that there is no need, but it is just not true. Animals have like not less needs than humans. They have different needs in many ways, of course, totally. But they don't have less needs, and it is not easy and sometimes even not possible to actually offer them the life they deserve. And if we overload ourselves with too many of them, it's getting really impossible and sometimes even really ugly. And another problematic aspect that I see a lot in my life is that we use the abuse of animals or the mistreatment of animals as a reason to project our negative emotions onto someone. But those negative emotions usually do have a root cause that is way deeper than what we currently see. For example, let's take my classmate. I felt really insecure and unhappy most of the time during school. I've gone through different phases of different intensities of bullying, and I just felt really unworthy and not accepted and liked and everything. So what I did was that I found something I was better than anyone else. I wasn't better in school in general, I wasn't better in looking good, but I was better in being good. I was better in being the one who is not eating animals. I was better in being the one who is rescuing animals. I was better in being the one who is creating those beautiful special connections to animals. And that brought me into a position to be able to look down on the others that usually were looking down on me. And of course that felt much better. But it made, like, instead of dealing with the root cause of not feeling accepted, instead of getting into conversations about stuff, instead of seeking help from adults, I just fueled the problem with doing the same as they did. Or when it comes to my parents, I felt mistreated by them. I felt treated unfairly. And even though my parents did their very best, they were just little humans trying their best to raise their children in a system that's not really children friendly. And yeah, sometimes they messed up. And as a child, I wasn't able to understand that. I wasn't able to explain to them why I felt that way. I just felt that way. But because there was no reason for me, because everything seemed so logical in the world of the adults and I wasn't able to explain it, I found one thing where I was really sure that my parents were messing up. and that was their treatment of animals. So I had one thing I could look at and judge them for this one thing, and I could blame them for it. And it felt good because I felt so much resentment, so much anger and fear and sadness inside me, and I had no way of dealing with that in a healthy way. So I figured out this opportunity, which was wonderful to cope, but of course it was not a source of a healthy relationship with my parents, and it was not an opportunity to create wonderful friendships with the other students at school. I was just participating in extremely toxic dynamics, and if you look at that in my own life, that already seems to be quite sad. But the problem is we are not only doing that with the people directly surrounding us, we are doing it on a much bigger scale. We are doing it in the politic scale. We are doing it in the worldwide scale of how we treat each other and how we project our emotions on others. And that is a big problem because if we feel resentment and hate towards, for example, farmers, how are we supposed to create a new system with them? How are we supposed to create freedom and peace and love with them? Like, no, it's not gonna happen. It's just not gonna happen. If we don't deal with the root causes of our negative emotions, we will project them onto others, and it will feel totally logical to us, but it's not gonna be objectively, it's not gonna be fair, and it's gonna be intensely dangerous and toxic. So if we continue to use rescuing animals as a coping mechanism for our own negative emotions, we will not only break ourselves, because yes, doing this will feel like you're fighting against the world. If you constantly try to fill up the void inside of you with things around you, even though if it's not like real things, but like trying to change the world around you in order to feel better inside yourself, you're gonna feel like you're fighting against the whole world. And the more you'll look at it, the more pain you will see, and the more desperate you will feel. And it's a never-ending cycle of pain and suffering and fear. And I know that because I've been going through it, and I'm still going through it in many ways. And the truth is, that is life-threatening. You can't live as a human being without trusting others. You can't live as a human being with feeling like the whole world is against you. It's not possible. So you will break your own neck. Then you won't be able to take care of the animals the way they deserve. You won't even be able to accurately see them for who they are. And you will be destroying all the opportunities to collaborate with other humans who are having another perspective and another opinion than you do, because you're not able to accurately see them for who they are. Also, in order to keep that dynamic alive, and in order to stay in the role of the rescuer, you will always need a victim. This victim can be the mass of the animals, like you just will continue to rescue and rescue even far beyond your abilities, or you will just ever keep those animals in a position where you have to belittle them in order to stay in your own role. So you always have to see them as helpless towards yourself. And that is often, it's really commonly in, for example, dogs. We really tend to, for example, call them our kids, and not only like mean it like children who will grow up and then be independent from us, but to do that until the last day of their lives, to never allow them to evolve to the full being that they actually are. And even though it might look cute, it might be fun, that actually is a recipe for a toxic relationship. And yeah, it's really important to see the pain of animals, but it is also important to see their strength. Remember, There's an answer to every question, but there never is an easy answer to a difficult question. I hope to see you soon again. Bye.
Oh,